Hi, my name is Bob Davis. I'm the Chief Operations Officer for Research Point in Austin, Texas.
And I'm John Rogers, Research Point's Medical Director, also based in Austin, Texas.
John, when we're trying to design studies, we want to make sure that they're doable. The most doable studies are the ones that sort of marry clinical medicine and protocol medicine, because there are certain things that are forced activities or testing that's done because of the way you design your protocol. When you can get the two of those in concert with one another, I think it facilitates your enrollment and the conduct of the study and the collection of the data much more easily.
Phase 3 actually should mirror what contemporary medical practice is. And too often sponsors tend to burden down a streamlined Phase 3 study with a number of ancillary parallel questions that are getting asked that could be answered in other studies. And primary endpoint, key secondary endpoint, safety variables, that will make for a streamlined Phase 3 study.
Sometimes I see what you do in phase 2 is not taken into phase 3. I see that some sponsors tend to get a little bit greedy, if you will. They want to expand that indication that they have more subjects involved, or they want to loosen up the inclusion-exclusion criteria to facilitate enrollment.
One of the things that's always intrigued me is why there's so many Phase 3 failures in this business. You have a nice clean Phase 2 study with a very narrowly defined population with results that look like they might be replicable in Phase 3, and then you end up doing Phase 3 with an expanded uncensored patient population or a larger field study with several investigators, and it turns out to be negative. And probably it's because the boundaries of the exclusion and exclusion criteria between Phase 2 and Phase 3 have changed markedly. I've seen some sponsors recently use techniques where they identify a chronic population, they enroll them in a non-drug study, and then they collect naturalistic information. For example, in a chronic hepatitis C program, you might want to collect liver function tests at monthly intervals or every 6 weeks, so you can get some idea of the normal variability of the analytes that you want to follow in the controlled study. And then when you're ready to do the pharmaceutical study, you roll everybody out of the naturalistic study into the placebo-controlled trials.
I would like to see sponsors be more proactive in including pharmacogenomic testing up front, because as you know, it's a real hassle if you see something that may require understanding the genetic profile of patients to go back, reconsent them, draw blood for genomic testing and so forth. It's a real challenge.
The majority of investigators' meetings should focus on rigorously training site staff on the primary endpoint. And you probably need to spend at least a half a day training people for the modified Rankin Scale score, for example, showing case vignettes, because as you know, a little variability in the outcome assessment is going to basically befuddle the data.
The policy varies tremendously from company to company, and there are some companies that have rather strict procedures about how to handle waivers. I think we're currently under an umbrella of reactionary behavior based on comments from regulatory authorities. So in my view, I think you could be a lot more liberal in Phase 2 when you're gathering information and so forth. So I'm much more in favor of judicious protocol waivers in Phase 2. By the time you move to Phase 3, you should understand your patient population pretty well. Those issues should be pretty well buttoned down, and you should be granting a lot less waivers, more on the line of deviations than actual waivers. The other thing that I've seen is that this is a world that has very diverse but sometimes very highly segmented populations. So glioblastoma in India, for example, a lot of case material for pharmaceutical study, but not too much in the way of therapeutics.
Same thing is if the regulatory process and what's the hurdle to get started. We know some countries take 6 months, some countries take up to a year to get started. Are you willing to delay enrollment in those areas for that protracted period of time, but know that you'll make up once they get started?